Imagine stepping outside right now, into a world that's frozen solid for thousands of years straight. No heater, no jacket from a store, no weather app warning you it's about to get worse. Just you, the cold, and your own two hands. How did anyone survive that? Today, surviving winter is almost automatic. We flip a switch for heat, throw on a mass-produced coat, and grab food from a supermarket that never runs out. But roughly 20,000 years ago, during the peak of the last ice age, none of that existed. Average temperatures were far colder than today. Glaciers covered huge parts of the northern hemisphere. And entire ecosystems shifted into frozen tundra and grassland steppe. And yet, humans didn't just survive this. They thrived in it. So how did a species with no fur, no claws, and no natural cold resistance pull that off? It turns out the answer starts with something surprisingly small. Long before the Ice Age reached its coldest point, early humans had already started solving the cold problem through clothing. Scientists actually traced this back using an unusual method: lice. By studying when body lice genetically split from head lice, a split that only makes sense once humans started wearing clothes, researchers estimate this happened somewhere in a wide range, possibly 80,000 to 170,000 years ago. Then came a major upgrade: the eyed needle. At Denisova Cave in Siberia, archaeologists found one of the oldest needles ever discovered, roughly 50,000 years old, and here's the twist: it likely wasn't even made by our direct ancestors. It's believed to belong to the Denisovans, a completely separate, now extinct human species. Tailored clothing technology, it turns out, wasn't a Homo sapiens invention. It may have already existed in other branches of the human family tree. This wasn't just wrapping yourself in a hide anymore. This was tailoring. Fitted sleeves, layered furs, wind-resistant seams. But warm clothing alone couldn't keep you alive through an Ice Age winter. You also needed somewhere to actually live. In Mezhyrych, Ukraine, archaeologists uncovered something almost unbelievable. Dwellings built from mammoth bones, jaws stacked as foundations, tusks curved into door frames, the whole structure likely covered in hides for insulation. These weren't temporary shelters, they were engineered structures designed to trap heat in a landscape that offered none. Inside, hearths weren't just random campfires. They were carefully maintained, reused in the same spot over and over. Fire meant warmth, cooked food, and protection from predators all at once. But a warm shelter didn't matter much if you couldn't find enough food to survive the winter in the first place. The Ice Age landscape was dominated by megafauna: mammoths, woolly rhinos, giant bison. Taking one down wasn't a one-person job. Bone accumulations at ancient kill sites suggest large, coordinated group hunts where dozens of people worked together using spears and later, spear throwers to bring down animals many times their size. And here's the clever part. Once they had the meat, the frozen ground itself became the solution to storage. Burying surplus meat in permafrost created a natural freezer, letting groups stockpile food through the leanest months. But surviving as individuals wasn't enough. Surviving the Ice Age meant surviving as a group, and that required something less physical and far more complex. At Sungir, in Russia, archaeologists found a burial site, roughly 30,000 years old, loaded with carefully carved ivory beads. This wasn't just decoration. It was evidence of deep social organization, trade, ritual, and shared culture, all happening in the middle of brutal Ice Age conditions. Strong social bonds meant shared knowledge, shared food, and shared protection. The kind of cooperation that turns a fragile individual into a resilient group. And that single difference may explain one of the biggest mysteries of the entire Ice Age. Here's the surprising part. Humans weren't the only ones facing the Ice Age, and weren't even the only ones inventing solutions to it, as we saw with that Denisovan needle earlier. Neanderthals had lived through cold European winters for hundreds of thousands of years, arguably better physically adapted to cold than we were. And yet, around 40,000 years ago, they disappeared, while other human species faded out too. Homo sapiens, meanwhile, kept going. One leading theory: it wasn't brute strength or biology that made the difference, it was social networks, trade, and cooperation on a larger scale. In other words, surviving the Ice Age wasn't just about being tough, or even about being first to invent something. It was about not surviving alone. So next time your heater kicks on or you grab a meal from the fridge without a second thought, remember that convenience exists because of tens of thousands of years of trial, error, and innovation. Tailored clothing, engineered shelters, coordinated hunting, and tight-knit communities, All of it built by people facing a world far colder and far harder than anything most of us will ever know. If you find this stuff as fascinating as we do, hit subscribe. There's a lot more ancient history where this came from.